which one is better.
We may have a new contender for best day at work ever. Welcome back to Drive Reviews. You've caught us in the middle of testing something very, very special. This is the Ferrari Purosangue. We're on the road in New Zealand. This is a left-hand drive version straight from the factory in Maranello. But to say we've been looking forward to testing this car as close to Australia as we could possibly get is something of an understatement. Now, later in this episode, you're going to get to see all about the new Ferrari SUV. That, according to Ferrari, isn't quite an SUV. And don't forget, everything you need to know about the Purosangue and everything else we're testing on this episode of Drive Reviews is over at drive.com.au. But we've got some other exciting cars for you to look at this episode. Let's take a look at them right now. This week we drive the Ford F-150, take a first look at the Audi Q4 e-tron and stretch the legs of the Ferrari Purosangue.
G'day guys, Ben Zachariah here from drive.com.au, and it is the 75th anniversary of the Ford F-Truck. It's been almost 2 decades since Ford Australia sold one locally. It is the most popular car in the US, has been since 1981, and today we're going to take the new one for a drive. As with the rest of the F-150s arriving in Australia, this started out life as a left-hand drive vehicle being built at the Dearborn, Michigan plant in the US. Once it landed in Australia, the body was removed from the chassis, the firewall was taken out, and this thing's been completely rebuilt from the bottom up as a right-hand drive car. There are 2 variants on sale, the base model XLT and the premium Lariat version, both of which are available in short wheelbase and extended wheelbase versions. Today, we're going to take the Lariat long wheelbase for a drive.
Being that the car is essentially built twice, it means the entry-level F-150 XLT is priced from $106,950 before on-road costs. Not a crazy jump from the equivalent XLT in the US, where it's priced from roughly $57,000 US dollars, or approximately 90,000 Aussie dollars, thanks to our poor exchange rate. The Lariat starts from $139,950 in Australia, or $140,945 for the long wheelbase, or about 27% more than what you'd expect to pay for the equivalent model in the US of A. So, is it worth it? Well, first, let me declare my own bias.
10 years ago, I flew to Michigan in the US and I bought myself a 1993 Ford F-150 flare side. It's powered by a 5-litre V8 and I love that truck. Ever since then, I've wanted to get another one. And almost 10 years to the day, Ford's launched its own right-hand drive F-150 in Australia. Now this one is the Lariat long wheelbase, which is the biggest and most expensive in the F-150 range.
This one is a far cry from the basic rust-filled pickup I bought for $2,000 off Craigslist in 2013. The latest F-150 comes with thoughtful additions, like an access step built into the tailgate, Pro Trailer Backup Assist to make reversing a trailer as easy as possible, and features like radar cruise control and heated front and rear seats for the Lariat. While the XLT makes do with an 8-inch infotainment screen and traditional gauges, the Lariat gets a 12-inch infotainment screen and a 12-inch digital instrument cluster for the extra money. Mechanically though, they're identical, both powered by a 3.5-litre twin-turbo petrol V6 producing 298 kilowatts and 678 newton meters, and mated to a 10-speed automatic transmission, something Ranger owners may recognise.
The petrol engine feels a lot more refined than the diesel units we're used to in more traditional pickups. It may be a V6, but it's not lacking in power. First impressions? Well, I'm reminded of the 200 series Land Cruiser. The first time I drove one of those, it took me about 10 to 15 minutes to really get a handle on the size of it. But this thing, it doesn't feel that much different from a Ranger. It's bigger in all dimensions, but it's really not such a big leap from the dual cabs that we're already used to.
That's because it's almost the same width as the Ranger. However, this American pickup is 73mm taller, and is either 502mm or 803mm longer, depending on whether you go for the short or long wheelbase option. The wheelbase itself is 3694mm or 3994mm long respectively, compared to the Ranger's 3270mm long wheelbase in the dual cab. The steering may also be familiar to those stepping out of a Ranger.
Ford engineers say that the steering is actually better calibrated than those found on left-hand drive variants sold in North America. It's because this uses the steering box from a Ranger Raptor. But to me, it feels a little bit too light, and the steering wheel's probably a little bit too big. But you do feel like a king of the road behind this thing.
Yes, it's still possible to feel that way, even without the traditional throbbing V8 that became synonymous with the F-truck over the decades.
Representatives for Ford said they never really considered a special suspension tune for Australian roads. And frankly, it doesn't need it. Both the short wheelbase and the long wheelbase F-150 ride perfectly well.
Even with the F-150 pulling its full 4.5 ton towing capacity, the V6 gets the job done, and the big pickup cruises along almost like there's nothing there. And despite the poor condition of the roads in Melbourne's west, the Ford performed surprisingly well, no doubt helped by the extra length in the wheelbase.
The Ford F-150 feels like a game changer in Australia. There are going to be plenty of Ford Ranger drivers looking to upgrade, as well as grey nomads looking for an alternative to the Land Cruiser and Patrol.
Coming up, we take a tour of the new Audi Q4 e-tron, and still to come, the Ferrari Purosangue. Welcome back to Drive Reviews. Let's take a look at one of Audi's latest electric SUVs.
Well, 2024 is shaping up to be a very exciting year for electric car buyers because we've got yet another new model entering the market to play in that Goldilocks space. You know what I mean? Not too big, not too small, not too expensive, not too space age. This is the Audi Q4 e-tron. It fits nicely into the range, and it may just be the family EV that you're looking for.
The Audi Q4 e-tron is available in two body styles, an SUV wagon and a sportback. Pricing starts from $88,300 before options and on-road costs for the e-tron 45 in either wagon or sportback, and steps up to $108,500 for the 55 Quattro SUV and $109,500 before options and on-roads for the 55 Quattro sportback. All Q4 e-tron variants use the same 77 kilowatt-hour battery pack. And while efficiency claims for Australia are still pending, other markets note a claimed efficiency of around 16 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometres and a range of about 560 kilometres for the e-tron 45.
So talking Goldilocks allows us to add a little bit of context. By the name, the Q4 e-tron is bigger than a Q3, yet smaller than a Q5. This is the SUV body style. There is a sportback variant coming as well, which is interestingly a little bit aerodynamically slipperier, so you will get slightly better efficiency on that one. Two models, as we said, the 45 and the 55, but in terms of where this sits in the world, it is basically the same size as a BMW iX1 or a Volvo XC40, very similar to the Lexus NX as well, but it is smaller than a Tesla Model Y, which is the five-door electric SUV that most people are aware of. However, this is priced above the Tesla Model Y long range, but below the Tesla Model Y performance. Well, the back of an SUV is the important place, especially if you're going to be buying one of these as a family car. So again, here's some more context. I'm 6'3", that seat is in my driving position, but it gives us two kind of really key things to note. I'm pretty tall, I've got long legs. That is a heap of room that I have for knee room here, so big tick there. I've got a reasonable amount of headroom as well because there is a scallop cut out of the roof, even with the panoramic sunroof. So again, big tick. But something, if you're not familiar with electric cars, okay, we all talk about how they don't have a big transmission tunnel to send mechanical components to the rear wheels. You end up with a relatively flat floor, but because the batteries are under the floor, you get a high floor as well. I sit with my front driver's seat quite low, and because I've got long legs, I've got really limited toe room to get under the bottom of that seat. It's not too big of an issue because I do have a lot of legroom, but it is something to bear in mind, especially if you do have taller passengers. And you'll see too that my thighs are lifted from the seat base here because, again, you've got a higher floor. If, however, you're putting children or slightly shorter adults in the back, they'll be fine. And I think in terms of space, this is where an EV really makes a lot of sense. Now, it's worth calling out too, you do get an armrest, but also tri-zone climate control is standard across the Q4 e-tron range. So I've got not only vents, but I can control the temperature here as well. Let's have a quick look up front. Now, as well as the high level of standard equipment that we've gone through, it's worth pointing out that the front of the Q4 is actually a really, really nice place to be as a driver. Similar to the current Q3, you've got this angled dashboard that gives you a really strong driver-centric display. You've got the big touchscreen here. You've obviously got a digital dashboard that's standard in all models, but thankfully for me, you've got buttons on the screen that control the temperature because it is a lot easier to use. None of this just touch only, think about it when it happens interfaces. This is a really easy car to step into. So if this is going to be your first EV and you're used to not only other Audis but other sort of regular petrol cars, this is going to feel very familiar and you'll be right at home in no time. Now, it's also worth calling out that because of the electric driveline, and like I said with the back, you don't have the transmission tunnel, you've got a really nice floating console here. There's great storage down the front for your phone. You've got 2 cup holders. It's a really nice, usable cabin. And it's got one of the largest head-up displays that I've seen, and it's part of the kind of fancy features that you do get in the Q4, particularly up the range, which includes an augmented reality head-up for navigation and these really cool matrix LED headlights that you can change the lighting signature on. Kind of pointless, but kind of fun, and it allows you to sort of, you know, make the Q4 your own. Now, it is fair to mention that this car, as you see it here today, is not an Australian market car. It has features, colours, options that will be available, but probably not in a base package. But if you do want to get a better look at the Q4 ahead of its launch in the second half of 2024, Audi have said that they're going to bring a few cars over to have on display in dealerships around the country. So if you are wanting to have a look at the back seat, see if the boot's going to work for you, press some buttons, check the colours, check the brochures, you'll be able to do that ahead of the car's launch. But if you've got any questions about the Q4 e-tron, about Audi's other electric cars or any other car on the market, head on over to drive.com.au and we have got everything you need.
Stick around because after the break, we're going to drive the SUV that Ferrari said it would never build. You're watching Drive Reviews. It's time for the Ferrari Purosangue. Well, here it is. This is the all-new Ferrari SUV. In Italian, they call it Purosangue, but you're probably thinking I sound like an idiot when I say it like that, but that is how it's pronounced. Now, I was about to say we're finally driving it in Australia. We're not, but this is as close to Australia as this vehicle has gotten so far. We are in New Zealand, which means, at the very least, we are test driving this vehicle on the same side of the road as we drive in Australia. But there is a catch. These ones are left-hand drive. They're directly from the factory in Maranello. One of the things I'm going to try to answer is whether this is actually an SUV, because according to Ferrari, it isn't an SUV, even though it is kind of an SUV. We're going to find out whether that's the case or not. I'm looking forward to driving this thing. Let's get into it. There's a temptation with any supercar to say that if we need to ask the price, we can't afford it. But let's cover the basics here. It starts from an eye-watering $728,000 before on-road costs. And if you go crazy with the options list, you'll be forking out $1 million Australian once it's on the road. Super SUVs certainly don't come cheap. The engine is a masterpiece, as you'd expect from Ferrari, with the 6.5-litre V12 derived from the 812 supercar. A little muted in terms of the soundtrack that accompanies the Fire and Brimstone, it still generates 533 kilowatts and 716 newton metres. It will thunder the Purosangue from 0 to 100 kilometres an hour in just 3.3 seconds, while the run to 200 kilometres an hour takes only 10.6 seconds. The 4-seat cabin is comfortable and cements the Ferrari as perhaps the new gold standard in comfortable grand touring. It feels like a Ferrari, it looks like a Ferrari, and the driving position is more sports car than SUV. The rear-hinged rear doors, which look strange in theory, work well in practice and make accessing the second row easier than it otherwise would be. There's more room back there than we expected too, and it's comfortable even for adults when you have adults up front. The boot, yes, we are talking about a Ferrari boot, is useful without being massive. There's plenty of space for the kind of luggage 2 adults would take on a road trip, but it does start to get full quickly if you've got 4 adults on board. Now, there are 2 specific areas for me where the new Ferrari SUV that isn't an SUV doesn't feel like an SUV. The first is when you drive it. This absolutely does not feel like you're driving a big, heavy SUV. A lot of that's got to do with things like balance and control, the way the chassis is, the fact the engine's mounted so far back, the steering, the braking, all of those things. Incredibly precise and very unlike what you would expect from an SUV. But, and I'm going to step out of shot in a minute so you can enjoy this and have a look without me ruining it, it's the way that it looks that I think most removes it from where SUVs sit. Have a look at the style of this. Yes, there's carbon fibre trim and the wheels are spectacular and it's got the right badging, but this is aggressive and still subtle and has that Italian design flair that is seemingly so difficult for so many other designers to execute, regardless of the platform. But have a look at how stunningly designed this vehicle is. There's a lot of it that is actually effective, like the aero design and the way the air flows over the body to keep the car as aerodynamic as possible. And some of it are little things like the carbon fibre wheel arch trim and mirrors. This one's got a carbon fibre roof as well. There's plenty of things that you can option, but all around the styling of this thing is somehow aggressive, but subtle and also beautiful at the same time. The Ferrari design team has done an amazing job of executing the exterior of this car, and the good news is that the interior is just as impressive, and that's where we're going to go right now because we're going to take it for a drive. Don't go anywhere. After the break, we drive the Ferrari Purosangue. Drive Reviews is mid-test with the mighty Ferrari Purosangue. The question that everybody wants answered really is what this feels like when you're behind the wheel and you're driving it. First up, I can say that as a passenger, the Purosangue is actually really impressive. The bump absorption, the compliance, the way that this rides over poor surfaces is really genuinely impressive given the outright performance that this is capable of. There's huge power, huge torque, 0 to 100 times are genuinely impressive. This is a really, really fast vehicle, regardless of whether it's a sports car or an SUV. So the way that it rides and the comfort level is really, really impressive. I think that's worth mentioning. As for whether it's an SUV or not, outside of the styling that we covered briefly, I reckon when you get behind the wheel and you drive it, that's where it becomes most evident to me that this is not an SUV equal to a lot of the other SUVs that we've tested. Now, there are plenty of fast SUVs around, and for whatever reason, manufacturers have decided that that's a path they really want to go down. They don't just want to deliver an SUV, they want to deliver one that delivers sports car levels of performance. So there's plenty of them in the market, but there's something different about the Ferrari, and you might expect that because it's a Ferrari, but there is absolutely something different about this. It could be that it's a bespoke platform. It could be that it's not quite as high riding. It could be that it doesn't feel top heavy. It's very low in the way that the balance is set up and it feels low to the ground. That could be a factor as well. But this doesn't feel like an SUV to drive. It feels like a Ferrari. When you sit here in the driver's seat behind the steering wheel with the Manettino switch there on the right, and the same switchgear that you're familiar with from other Ferraris, this feels like a Ferrari. And I think that is really important because I think the Ferrari buyer, that's what they want. That's absolutely what they want when they buy this kind of car. As for whether an existing Ferrari owner would buy this vehicle, I don't know. That's up to them to decide. But I can tell you that if they're new to the brand and they get in this is going to feel like they're driving a Ferrari. So I think that is really important, and that's something that the brand said it wanted to deliver from the outset and that it has delivered. In terms of the speed, the pace, all of the performance indicators, the Purosangue is very, very impressive. It turns in the steering, the balance, the fact that the engine is set so far back, the way that this feels on a tight, twisty road when you really hook into it and you start to have some fun is incredible. It feels way more like a sports car than you might have thought by looking at it. And overall, this is just an incredibly special driving experience. It's one that puts a smile on your face every time you're behind the wheel, and it makes you feel special when you're behind the wheel, which I think is absolutely crucial. This is a sensational car, and ultimately, I don't think it matters whether you call it an SUV or a sports car or something in between. For me, it's more Grand Tourer than anything else, but I don't think it matters what you call it. I just think Ferrari has done a sensational job, and I think anyone who gets in one of these is going to absolutely love it. So the question we need to answer with the Ferrari Purosangue is whether this is actually an SUV. It's a question I posed at the start of this episode, and it's something I've been trying to get my head around while I've been driving this fantastic, almost sports car, I guess you could say. According to Ferrari, this isn't an SUV. Now, the reason they say that is because a classical SUV is very much more four-wheel drive-y than this thing is. This is kind of like a Grand Tourer with a little bit more ground clearance. It's a very, very special car. It's obviously very fast. It feels very bespoke, and it feels every bit a Ferrari. So for me, reluctantly, because I don't always love marketing speak, I have to agree with the guys at Ferrari that this isn't quite an SUV in the classical sense. I can tell you one thing though, something it is very, very impressive. Doesn't matter whether you're driving, whether you're a passenger in the front seat or a passenger in the second row, this thing here feels every bit a Ferrari, every bit very special, and an incredible thing to drive. Don't forget, everything you want to know about this vehicle and everything else you've seen on Drive Reviews, that's over at drive.com.au. Make sure you get out there and enjoy whatever car it is that you're driving. We'll see you again next week at Drive Reviews.